In the previous video, I talked a little bit about the rule of law when I was talking about the Supreme Court. But unfortunately for most people, the court systems are large, complex, and full of problems. One of the biggest of these problems is corruption. So while in the last video I was talking about the independence of the courts, in this I'm going to talk about government officials lining their own pockets at the expense of taxpayers. To do this, because creating a complex algorithm that ranks countries based on corruption is a lot of work and frankly beyond my skill set, I'm going to use the Corruption Perceptions Index created by Transparency International. It's important not just to look at today's index, but also to look at historical indices in order to find trends. What this rankings list does is it compares 180 countries, gives them a score from 0 to 100, the higher the better, and then spits out a list for public consumption. To start, we're going to focus on America, not because they're an example of what to do, but because they're an example of exactly what not to do. If you look at the period from 2017 to 2019, no country fared worse in the CPI than the US did. In 2016, the US had an election. In 2017, the victor of that election, Donald Trump, took office. That is likely the impetus that caused this decline in the CPI. In 2017, the US had a score of 75. Now they have a score of 69. Not a single country above the US in the rankings list dropped that much from 2017 to 2019. But the US is not alone in this problem. From 2015 to 2019, none of the top 10 countries' scores went up. In fact, 9 out of 10 went down. The fact remains, though, that no country above the US in the rankings has decreased as much since 2017. What are some possible reasons for this? Well, policies that benefit the president, his friends, and his family at the expense of taxpayers. The use of taxpayer funds for non-governmental excursions. Withholding of foreign aid in return for political favors. The list, unfortunately, goes on. The only other two countries in the top 25 that have seen drops even close to that of the US are Canada and, conveniently, the UK. This means that without doing any additional research, we can begin to draw some parallels. The UK ranks 12th in the CPI. That's tied with Canada, Australia, and Austria. Why did the UK take such a large hit in the CPI since 2017? Well, the answer is fairly simple. Media attention on government scandals, probably helped by the fact that the government was creating more scandals. There were allegations of cover-ups for the 2017 contaminated blood scandal in which people died. That same year in Northern Ireland, there was a renewable heat incentive scandal in which caused massive divides within the government, but also gave a hefty bill to match. In 2018, members of parliament were accused of money laundering and their shady donors were brought to light. And then there's India. India in 2019 ranked 80th. That's behind South Africa, Tunisia, and Greece. That's tied with China. With a score of 41 out of 100, India is the lowest ranking of our three countries. And while things may not seem like it, this is actually good news for India. In 2013, their score was 36. In 2014, the government was voted out, and immediately the score jumped to 38. It hasn't decreased since. India has had its fair share of scandals, one involving a multi-billion-dollar deal for French fighter jets. But the amount of publicized corruption, as well as lower-level corruption decreases, have led to India going up the rankings. The CPI is a Corruption Perceptions Index, which means the media does play a role. But you can be sure that if the government commits a crime, the media will find out about it sooner or later. Obviously, the CPI isn't the only way to measure corruption, but by looking at the three responses of these three different countries, we can find solutions. In 2018, in the UK, an MP was caught abusing her power. She was jailed for it, but she was also recalled by public petition. In all three of the countries, in fact, whenever somebody has been caught with their hands in the cookie jar, they have been pressured into resigning. That leads us to the most effective solution to this problem: the media. Because media coverage means public pressure, and public pressure means change.